Schools should wait to teach sexual education. This is my persuasive against speech by Emily Saunders. Most schools start teaching sexual education during about the 5th grade. This is a good time for girls and boys because this is when they start getting into puberty and they need to start learning about their body parts and other things like that. Like girls need to learn about their menstrual cycle, guys need to learn about their whatever happens down there for them, about growing hair and having to wear deodorant and bras and all that kind of stuff. Usually starts around the 5th grade. In other schools, they're wanting to make younger kids learn about sexual education as early as even kindergarten. When I asked around and got different parents' opinions, many parents argued with me that 5th grade is even too early. They said that their children shouldn't be exposed to such matters as early as 5th grade, nevertheless, when they're little. They're scared if it's taught any earlier, then they wouldn't be able to handle the material covered. I agree with this because if even in 5th grade when you're taught sexual education, and me being in high school, I had to go through this, and especially in science class, when we learn about the reproductive system and the scientific terms like penis and vagina, all the children just snicker and they laugh and they don't take anything seriously. Now, just imagine a kindergartner being told those words. They would be scarred for life, I'm sure. They would go home and ask their parents, and I'm sure their parents would be shocked to hear that they know those words. And I just think that 5th grade is a good age, at least, for them to start learning about sexual education, and no earlier. Most sexual education classes are taught briefly and not thoroughly. This isn't even enough time to cover the serious matters that need to be covered. Most of the classes, when you hear about health or sexual education, it's just a credit. That's all students think about when they hear of health is a credit. Most of the teachers don't go through it thoroughly like they need to if it's going to be taught. So why teach it to these early children if it's not even going to be taught properly, and it's just going to be taught so they can say, okay, we've taught this class. Most teachers are, most of the time, not adequately trained to teach sexual education, and may violate the course by teaching their own beliefs or morals on the subject, rather than continuing with the facts. I've had experiences from this in many other classes, and sexual education teachers, and not even teachers, just everybody, they do have the tendency to portray their own morals and beliefs when they're trying to teach something. And I'm sure with such a serious matter to the society today, such as sexual education, that a teacher would portray their own beliefs and morals. For example, one of my teachers, I'm not going to say their name, in high school, she would always tell us her opinions, and she was a very religious woman, and she would not teach the whole class because she thought some of the material we covered wasn't moral to her. She would always refer to the Bible and say, this is right and this is wrong. And I think that's really common nowadays. The lessons can go against moral or religious beliefs of an individual, just like I said before. It's very easy to get caught up with fact and beliefs. Many schools teach safe sexual education instead of abstinence, while many religions and families stress marriage first. This is also true with the changing society nowadays. It's not about abstinence anymore. They don't stress abstinence when they teach, especially high school classes with health. They just teach safe sex, and they teach about STDs, and they teach about condoms and birth control, instead of just saying, hey, why don't y'all just be abstinent and that'll just fix all the problems. They don't do that anymore. They think that's immoral, and they want to be more realistic about the fact, but people at home, when they get home to their families and they tell their families what they have learned, their families are very shocked, and they want the school to teach marriage first. That's the proper way to go. Everybody has different beliefs. Many parents want to approach the talk their own way at an appropriate time that they see fit. If a parent wants to tell their child that babies come from clouds or babies come from flowers while they're still in kindergarten, they should have the right to do that. They shouldn't have to worry about their child being taught that their parents have intercourse and that's how they became a baby. If their parents don't want that at such an early age and they want to retain that innocence in their child, then they should have the right to keep that innocence. Teaching sexual education too early can cause children to be too comfortable with their own bodies and with the bodies of the opposite sex. This has led to many increases. Research from 1992 shows 54%, 61% of boys and 48% of girls had sexual intercourse that are still in high school. The numbers have increased since then. The increased numbers of kids having sexual intercourse has then led to the increase of sexually transmitted diseases. And 4 out of 5 high school students have experienced sexual harassment at school. You shouldn't have to go to school and worry about being sexually harassed. It should be a learning environment that you should be able to feel comfortable in and not have to worry about your peers sexually harassing you. 1 out of every 10 teenagers have become pregnant, and this is all where the education system has failed, where sexual education is being taught way too early, and kids are being way too comfortable with their bodies and maturing faster, and they're just too comfortable with the fact that human beings reproduce and human beings can take part in such matters. Sexual education should be taught when students can comprehend the material and not use the knowledge inappropriately. They need to be old enough to understand that the class is just for factual information, and they need to weigh out what needs to be taught in what grade, and they really need to stress abstinence is the key. These are my sources.